Imagine you're walking around your house
Right.
and you have this tiny, incredibly overworked UN interpreter just living inside your head.
Oh, I like that visual.
Yeah, so you look at a coffee cup on the counter and your brain automatically fires off the word for it in your native language. And then that little interpreter just scrambles.
Right, they're like flipping frantically through a mental dictionary.
Exactly. They find the English equivalent and finally they whisper coffee into your ear.
Yeah.
And I mean, it works. Sure, you get the word.
Right.
But doing that for every single object, every single action, all day long, it is absolutely exhausting.
Oh, it's a perfect recipe for complete cognitive overload because when every single interaction becomes this clunky two-step mental translation process, you aren't actually communicating anymore.
Right, you're just calculating.
Exactly. It acts like this massive traffic jam right in your prefrontal cortex. And, that's why speaking a new language feels so physically draining at first. It completely saps the joy right out of the experience.
And that mental lag, right?
Yeah.
That heavy lifting is exactly what we are dismantling in today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone.
Glad to be here for this one.
So our mission today is exploring how to fire that tiny interpreter in your head entirely. We're going to dive into this really fascinating psychological blueprint for language learning.
Yeah, drawn from a really great source.
Right, it's a YouTube video transcript from the Mr. English channel. The hosts are Emily and Paul, and the video is called How to Train Your Brain to Speak in English. What's so compelling about their approach and why we wanted to bring it to you today is that they aren't just like throwing vocabulary lists at us.
Thank goodness.
Right. Instead, they're trying to solve this translation problem by helping you develop a natural, authentic internal dialogue. They're trying to help you build a realistic voice in a new language.
Which is huge. It is essentially a masterclass in applied neuroplasticity because honestly, even if you have zero interest in learning a language right now, like none at all, what Emily and Paul are really detailing here is how we can consciously rewire our own internal monologue from the ground up.
Yeah, that's the wild part to me.
Right. You are actively altering how your brain processes reality just to create a brand new, realistic voice.
So let's really look at the mechanics of this, because in the video, Paul admits right away that he is totally stuck in this translation trap.
He's living it.
Yeah, he thinks in his native language, he translates, and then he speaks. And Emily points out, well, obviously, this is why you feel so fatigued all the time.
Naturally.
So her solution to bypass this is to change the internal monologue by starting small. But, and this is key, not with single words, she absolutely insists on small sentences.
Which is such an important distinction.
And I have to admit, when I was first looking at this, I was a little skeptical of this step. Because, if my brain is already struggling just to remember the English word pen, why does looking at a pen and forcing myself to think my pen is blue actually help?
It seems like more work.
Exactly. Isn't that just forcing me to juggle 3 extra words when I can barely handle 1?
It definitely sounds counterintuitive at first, but there is actually a really profound neurological difference between how the brain handles a single isolated word versus a full sentence.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So if you just look at a pen and try to force the English word pen into your memory, your brain basically treats it like this static piece of data.
Like a flashcard.
Exactly, like a flashcard just sort of floating in a void. There's no emotional tether, there's no physical tether to it, but when you form the full thought, this is my pen, or my pen is blue, you're establishing context.
Oh, I see.
You're building this spatial and personal relationship between yourself and the physical object in front of you. You are giving the brain a framework, like a little mini narrative to hold on to.
Okay, so it's about like anchoring the vocabulary to your immediate physical reality.
Yes, exactly that.
And the video gives some really practical examples of doing this, like right when you wake up with your morning routine. You wake up, and instead of just translating the word for morning in your head, you consciously narrate the actual state of your body.
Right.
You think, I am awake, I am hungry, and I want coffee. Then you walk to the sink and you think, I brush my teeth, the water is cold. Paul even jokes in the video that he looks in the mirror and thinks, I see my face, I am very handsome.
Which is funny, but it's actually a highly effective way to learn. Because by narrating your immediate environment like that, you are connecting the new language directly to your lived physical experience.
You're living it.
Right. Emily calls this connecting to your English life. And by doing that, you are completely bypassing that native language filter we talked about because you're attaching the new words directly to the sensory input.
So like the actual physical coldness of the water on your hands?
Yes. Or the actual physical feeling of being hungry in your stomach. The language suddenly becomes a direct description of reality rather than just a translation of a theoretical concept. That is how you start building a realistic voice.
You know, it really makes me think of learning to walk. Like, if you want to walk, you don't just sit in a chair and practice flexing your big toe over and over again, right?
Oh, that would be ridiculous.
Right, just hoping that toe flexing will eventually propel you forward down the street. Flexing a single toe is exactly like memorizing a single word on a flashcard. To walk, you have to take a full, complete step.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, it might be this tiny, super wobbly baby step, but it requires the coordination of the whole leg and your balance. So these small sentences like, "this is my pen," those are the complete steps. You're practicing the entire motion of the language, syntax and all, rather than just flexing a vocabulary toe.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it, honestly, because neurologically, taking that full step begins the process of giving your internal thoughts an authentic rhythm. You are training the brain to associate the new language not with like a sterile textbook exercise, but with your actual everyday existence.
You're bypassing the translator.
Totally.
Yeah.
You are building an express lane that skips the toll booth of your native language entirely.
Okay, but this brings up a massive blind spot for me with this whole method.
Oh, what's that?
Well, I could walk around my kitchen all morning, right? Silently building sentences like, "I am hungry," or "the coffee is hot." But knowing me, my internal pronunciation is probably terrible.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'm just guessing what the rhythm of the language actually sounds like based on my own internal biases. So how do I know if the realistic voice I'm trying to build in my head actually sounds like, real English?
Well, the short answer is you don't.
Right.
And that is exactly why Emily and Paul immediately moved to the critical necessity of targeted input. Because you absolutely cannot generate the melody or the realistic voice of a language in a total vacuum.
You need a template.
Exactly. Your brain needs an external model to mimic. They define this really simply in the video. The language has to go into your ears and your eyes consistently.
Right. But they are very specific about the kind of input you should be using. They heavily emphasize listening to easy A1 level English.
Yes, A1 is key.
And just for anyone listening who might be unfamiliar with that terminology, A1 is like the foundational, absolute beginner level in all the major language frameworks. It's the most basic vocabulary, the most basic grammar.
Right, no complex metaphors.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the video recommends simple podcasts. And of course, they naturally suggest their own channel, which makes sense. But they also recommend simple, highly repetitive pop songs.
Yes.
Which I found so interesting. Emily actually drops the specific example of that Selena Gomez song, "I Love You Like a Love Song, Baby," to make her point.
It's such a funny, specific example, but musically and linguistically, it's actually brilliant because pop songs are inherently designed around these very sticky hooks. They repeat core verbs and pronouns just relentlessly.
I am, you are.
Right. I am, you are, he has. By just casually listening to that in the background, you are exposing your brain to those foundational grammatical patterns over and over. You are absorbing what Emily calls the music or the rhythm of the language, and you're doing it without having to analyze it intellectually at all.
I hear that, but let me push back a bit here on behalf of our listeners, because I know what a lot of you are probably thinking right now. When people decide to tackle a new language, the standard classic advice is always total immersion, right?
Oh, yeah. The old throw them in the deep end advice.
Exactly. Shouldn't we just jump straight into the deep end? Like, turn on a critically acclaimed, fast-paced, complex movie, turn off all the subtitles, and just force our brains to either adapt or drown?
Right. Sink or swim.
Yeah. Isn't that the fastest way to acquire the real, authentic rhythm of a language?
It's a very common misconception, but the video actually pushes back incredibly hard against that deep end approach.
Let's go away.
Well, Emily points out that movies and complex native media are simply way too fast for a beginner's auditory processing system.
It's just a blur.
Yeah, your brain literally cannot isolate the individual words when they are fired at that speed. And Paul actually describes this phenomenon perfectly in the video. He says when the dialogue is too fast, it just sounds to him like fish, 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 fish.
Fish, fish. That is so funny, but it's incredibly accurate.
It really is.
When you don't know where one word ends and the next one begins, it's not language anymore. It just becomes this intimidating wall of blurred noise.
Exactly. And when your brain encounters a wall of noise like that, it panics and it shuts down. You learn absolutely nothing and you just end up feeling, frustrated and totally lost.
Yeah, which makes you want to quit.
Right. So, to counter this, Emily introduces a really elegant workaround. She suggests interest-based learning. You watch simple videos, but specifically about topics you already love and understand in your native language.
Right, okay. So Paul mentions in the video that he's a really big fan of cooking and sports. So Emily advises him to go find very simple instructional cooking videos in English. The chef on screen says, I see the tomato, I add salt. And you, as the viewer, are literally watching a pair of hands physically cut a tomato and sprinkle salt.
Yes.
Or for sports, finding a really basic highlight reel where the announcer just says, he kicks the ball, it is a goal.
Let's really look at the underlying mechanism there, because this is where the psychology of learning just completely shines.
Okay, lay it on me.
So, when you watch a fast-paced movie that you don't understand, your stress levels physically spike. Linguists refer to this as having a high affective filter.
Affective filter.
Yeah, it is essentially a neurological stress wall that actively blocks your brain from absorbing any new information. You're too stressed to learn. But when you attach language acquisition to a personal interest like cooking or football or whatever you love, the entire physiological response in your body changes.
Because you actually care about what you're watching.
Precisely. The video states that a happy brain learns more, and that is scientifically accurate. When you watch something you genuinely enjoy, your brain releases dopamine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and dopamine lowers that affective filter. It completely dismantles that stress wall. Furthermore, dopamine literally acts like a save button for new neural pathways.
Wait, really? A save button?
Yeah, it signals to the brain, hey, this is rewarding, remember this. So by using simple cooking videos, the process feels like entertainment, not like grueling academic work. You are comfortably absorbing the rhythm of the chef's voice. You're mapping the simple spoken words directly to the physical actions on the screen, and you're doing it all while your brain is in a highly receptive, low-stress state.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. The dopamine is basically acting as the adhesive for the new vocabulary.
Exactly.
So tracking our progress here for the listener, we are walking around our house, building small sentences in our heads. We are watching our favorite simple cooking videos. Our affective filter is nice and low, and we're absorbing the rhythm.
Sounds like a great routine.
But, and this is a big, but passive absorption isn't enough, is it?
No, it really isn't.
Because I can sit and listen to, I don't know, acoustic guitar music for 10,000 hours, and my brain might release a ton of dopamine, but that does not mean I can just pick up a guitar and suddenly play it.
Right, you'd just be staring at the strings.
Exactly. At some point, you have to actually produce the thing.
That is the crucial pivot. To truly cement this new internal realistic voice we keep talking about, you have to physically hear yourself producing it in the real world. And that brings us to the output phase.
And this is where things get a little intimidating for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the video is totally uncompromising on this.
Absolutely.
You have to speak. But Emily points out something really helpful. You do not need a conversation partner to do this. You can, and frankly, you should, speak to yourself.
Yes. Solo practice.
She recommends doing it in your room or in your car or in the shower. You literally just stand there and you describe your immediate world out loud. You say, I see a bed. The bed is big. The table is brown. So the lamp is on.
Right.
Or at night, you review your day out loud to yourself. Today I was happy. I ate pasta for lunch.
Now, I feel like you can practically hear the collective cringe of anyone trying this for the first time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you were listening to this deep dive right now and thinking there is absolutely no way you were going to stand alone in your bedroom and announce the lamp is on to an empty room, I hear you.
It feels so weird.
It sounds totally crazy. Paul even says in the video, people will think I am crazy. It just feels incredibly vulnerable, even when you're completely alone, to hear your own voice stumbling through these unfamiliar vowels and consonants. It feels like you're playing make-believe.
Yeah, it really does.
So tell me, does the brain actually benefit from this slightly embarrassing solo performance, or are we literally just playing pretend in the shower?
It is definitely not playing pretend. It is a physiological necessity for building a realistic voice. And yes, it feels ridiculous, but skipping this step breaks the entire system.
Okay, why?
Well, earlier we talked about developing that authentic, realistic voice, right? If you only ever listen to input and think silently to yourself, that voice just remains a phantom. It's entirely theoretical in your head. But when you speak out loud in the shower, you are engaging what neurologists call the audio-vocal loop.
The audio-vocal loop. Okay, unpack that for us.
So, when you think a word silently, you're only using certain motor planning areas of your brain. But when you speak out loud, you have to physically coordinate the diaphragm, the vocal cords, the tongue, and the lips.
About a whole physical process.
Exactly. And furthermore, as you speak, the sound actually vibrates through your jawbone, it's called bone conduction, and it travels through the air back into your own ears where your auditory cortex processes it. You are creating this closed physical loop of sensory data.
Oh, wow. So you are literally feeding your own brain the acoustic feedback of your own body making the sound.
Yes, and that feedback loop is immensely powerful for memory retention. When you look at your bed and physically force your vocal cords to say the word bed out loud, you are entirely removing that mental translator. You are taking a theoretical concept and turning it into a physical acoustic reality that your own body just created.
That is so cool.
And, the shower is actually a perfect place for this, not just because of the good acoustics, though that helps, but because it's this private, low-stakes environment. You can safely engage that audio-vocal loop without any fear of judgment.
You are hardwiring the physical object to the spoken sound using your own breath. That is just fascinating. Okay, so let's say I'm fully bought in.
Okay.
I am committed to the awkwardness. I am narrating my shower routine. I'm watching my simple A1 cooking videos, and I'm building my mini sentences instead of using flashcards.
Yeah.
The million-dollar question, which Paul rightfully asks Emily in the video, is, if I do all of this, will my brain change by tomorrow? How fast is this?
And Emily provides a wonderfully brutal, honest reality check here. She just says no.
Which honestly is kind of a relief to hear.
Right.
There are so many apps and programs out there promising fluency in like 3 weeks. It's exhausting.
It is. And her saying no just manages expectations beautifully. Learning a language, actually rewiring the brain's internal monologue to create a realistic voice, is inherently a slow process. The strategy they advocate for is consistency over volume.
Right.
They explicitly state that the goal is 10 to 15 minutes of this practice every single day. If you happen to have 2 hours on a Sunday, great, but the daily consistency is what actually matters.
Why is that, though? Like, why wouldn't a massive 4-hour cram session on the weekend be more effective than just 10 minutes of talking to myself in the car on a Tuesday?
It comes down to how the brain builds and prunes neural pathways. A massive cram session just overwhelms the system. It's way too much data to consolidate all at once, and honestly, most of it will just be pruned away by your brain while you sleep that night.
So you lose it anyway.
Exactly. But small daily exposures signal to the brain that this new information is a permanent, recurring feature of your environment. That daily reinforcement is what actually triggers lasting neural remodeling. Taking those small steps every single day is how you lay down the asphalt for that new easy pass express lane we talked about.
And part of laying down that asphalt involves making mistakes.
Right.
Which the video addresses head on. Paul asks, what if I make a mistake? What if I'm practicing in my room and I say I is happy instead of I am happy?
A very common fear.
Yeah, and Emily's response is incredibly encouraging. She doesn't tell him to, like, stop everything and go review grammar rules. She says mistakes are good. Mistakes mean you are actually trying to use the language. Her advice is when you catch a mistake, you just casually say, oh, okay, and you try again.
That simple phrase, oh, okay, it really synthesizes the entire mindset of their approach. Paul notes in the video that if the process isn't fun, he's just going to stop. Right. So lowering the stakes, embracing the errors with a simple shrug, and keeping the sessions to bite-sized 10-minute chunks, it completely removes the anxiety of perfectionism. And perfectionism is the absolute enemy of developing a natural, realistic voice. Because a truly authentic voice is naturally flawed, it's hesitant, and it's constantly evolving.
You really have to be kind to your brain. Paul literally says in the video, hello, brain, I am kind.
I love that.
Yeah. By removing the fear of being wrong, you give that new internal voice the safety and the space to develop organically from your daily life, rather than trying to, like, forcefully extract it out of a rigid textbook.
Exactly. The ultimate goal isn't flawless grammar right out of the gate. It's creating a comfortable, functional internal environment where the language can actually live and breathe.
So let's pull all this together for you, the listener. What are the core actionable takeaways from Emily and Paul's psychological blueprint?
Let's recap.
First, you have to ditch the mental translator. You do this by building small, contextual sentences in your head about your immediate surroundings. Take the full step. Don't just flex the toe.
Right.
Second, feed your brain with easy, interest-based input. Find the simple pop songs and the beginner videos about topics you actually enjoy, so that dopamine flows, that effective filter drops, and your brain stays happy.
Crucial step.
And third, Commit to the awkwardness. Talk to yourself in the shower or the car. Describe your world out loud to engage that audio vocal loop and physically train your ears to your new realistic voice. Keep it to 10 or 15 minutes a day, and please let yourself make mistakes.
And, if we step back and look at the bigger picture here, the implications of this blueprint go far beyond just language learning.
Oh, totally.
Whether you are trying to master a complex new professional skill, or change a deeply ingrained physical habit, or even just shift your own psychological self-image, the framework is nearly identical. You have to actively change your internal script. You have to carefully control the media and the input you feed your brain to keep your stress low. And you have to practice the physical output fearlessly, especially when it feels ridiculous.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound and honestly slightly wild thought to chew on as we wrap up today.
Oh.
Think about it. If the way we talk to ourselves, like the literal words and sentences of our internal monologue, fundamentally shapes how we perceive reality, how does developing a completely new, authentic, realistic voice in a second language change you?
Wow.
Right. When you finally bypass that tiny translator and you start actually thinking and dreaming and reacting directly in this new language, are you still the exact same person? Or does that new neurological pathway, that brand new voice, create a slightly different version of you?
That is a fascinating question.
Just a little something for you to think about the next time you catch yourself talking to the mirror.